Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
From warehouses to restaurants, the use of biometric data is moving from a niche market to become a more mainstream way to verify employee hours and check workers in and out of facilities for security reasons. The Wall Street Journal reports that as more companies track their workers with fingerprint and facial scans, employees are increasingly challenging firms in court over how that biometric data gets used and stored. So who cares? Why do you care? Well, there's security concerns, privacy concerns, and for some, they might be concerned about, quote, the man, end quote, and the implications of the slippery slope. So there's a number of different ways you could care. The reality is at the moment, only about 6% of businesses are employing this practice. Now, that may not sound like very much, but keeping in mind that of those 6%, a vast majority are mid to large size employers. So even though it sounds like maybe a small percentage, there's lots of employers across the nation, thousands, if not millions of employees right now who are subject to this type of tracking and or security measures. So there's broad implications. It just keeps moving faster and faster, and that's what we're going to take a look at today. But of course, we couldn't begin a conversation about technology or the man without
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
Note, Caleb's back. First mistake. Now the man is watching. The man is watching us. And then I also have one on you. Did we change the pronunciation of that word?
What?
Niche?
Niche?
Oh yeah. I thought you said niche.
Niche?
Niche market?
Niche. Yes, I was being
facetious there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Niche.
All right. I thought maybe we just changed we changed the pronunciation of words on the old guy here trying to mess with him. Okay.
Well, I do that without having to try usually.
Yeah,
so.
usually. No, I'm the slippery slope, fearful of the man guy.
So, Lance, under Illinois' 2008 Biometric Information Privacy Act, companies collecting such data must first obtain user consent and notify individuals about why and how their data will be used and stored and for how long. Texas and Washington also have biometric privacy laws, but only Illinois grants individuals the private right to sue. So let me ask you this before we dive into the issue as a whole. Right. In Illinois, right, a company has to get your consent. It has to tell Lance how and why your information will be used and for how long they'll hold on to it. So what's wrong with that?
Do I have the right to refuse? And if so, is my job at risk? There's my first question.
Well, you have the right to sue them over it if you don't like. Well,
what good does it do? That's
decision.
My point. Well, you know what? This is where we're sending it, and this is how long we're going to hand on to it, and this is. No, I don't like that. Well, sorry, you can't stop it. We're going to anyway.
Then you work someplace else, right? Free market, Mr. Capitalism.
Okay.
You work someplace that they don't require that, unless they all require it.
Okay.
Well, I'm just asking, right?
No, it makes sense.
Free market goes both ways.
You got me on that. I guess it depends on how important of a employee I am. It's like you said pre-show that if you put one of these up at TrueChat, I'm done.
Yeah.
So you know that going in. So how important am I, as a stockholder and as an employee when I say, you know what, if you do this, I'm out of here. I guess then it becomes, it's not really a power play. You're right. The employer has the right to implement whatever they want. It's their place of business. If I don't want to go along with their rules, then I go look for another job. I can't argue with that. Well,
let me ask,
but I don't like it that they can do that. And so my point is they're not really asking me my permission. They're just informing me of what they're going to do. And to me, that doesn't make it any better. I guess there's my point. Okay. Is that even though they're going to inform me what they're going to do with it, who's going to have it and how long that company has or that organization has to use that information from which they gain from my employer, I appreciate the fact that they're telling me that. I'm still not okay with it. And if I have no other recourse other than to quit. Now, also and I don't know, and you probably don't either because the article probably doesn't say, but if I don't want them to use it and I quit, is my information taken back? Or do they already have it because I was employed? See, I would think they need to ask me first, then I've got a lawsuit. Because if you just go and do it and it's not in my contract, it's not in the company rules that I signed when I started employment, then if you decide to do this in the middle of my employment, I should have the right to say no and quit and not have that information then shared.
Right.
You don't have that right because I work for you. If you change company policy, I should be able to leave the company before you use that information in a way that I don't want it used.
In other words, you can't just change policy, then somebody leave, but say, well, we already changed policy, so we're just going to stick by the new policy, instead of saying somebody like you where it's, no, I don't agree with the new policy, I'm leaving, so you can't subjugate me to the new policy.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I would want. And so I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you that the company has the right to do whatever they want. And then I, as an employee, have the right to make my own decision. And so my answer to your question is, last time, you move on. You have the right to do it. I don't think it makes any difference that you're telling me up front. I appreciate that you're doing it so that I can then quit, but it doesn't change my, it doesn't.
I appreciate you giving me the information I need to quit.
Yes.
Got it.
Rather than going behind my back and then me finding out afterwards.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that part of it.
Okay. Well, wouldn't you also contend, though, that it's probably, and I know this is a different slippery slope, but it's different for different businesses. I mean, right, I could see it reasonable. Like if I was going to go to work, for example, for really exclusive, very expensive private security company, then maybe some additional security precautions like that would make sense. Or maybe if I'm working in a cloud data center where I'm handling, literally have access to thousands of customers' records, what a business might reasonably ask me for to maintain security would be more reasonable.
Nope.
See, but I feel like you're just no on the additional security portion of this because it is more secure.
Nope.
And we're not because the only solution then, Lance, is
it's more invasive.
No internet, no computers, quit progress, stop moving forward, because biometrics, generally speaking, depending on the type of scanner and so forth, are both, one, you don't have to remember, and two, generally more secure than people trying to remember and maintain passwords. So the solution is we stop innovation and quit using computers, or we have to figure out how to navigate. No, you don't have to
quit using them. It's okay. So it's harder. Why does everything have to be easy? Why do we have to make things easy for everybody? Shouldn't something?
Well, it's easier and more secure, though. It's not just about it's not just about it being easy. I mean, easy, you could argue, is the secondary thing, and the first thing is it's more secure.
But it's putting more power into the hands of a few people by doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what is scary. And to me, what is wrong is because you're putting more power into the hands of fewer individuals, which then makes it easier for those few to control everybody else. And I think you're saying that's a good thing. I don't think that's a good thing.
I'm not saying it's a good thing.
You're making it, okay, it's more secure.
It's more secure.
Okay. But
which is just a fact.
And then you're telling me, though, that I'm all against all of this. No, I'm against putting power into the hands of the few to be able to mind control and life control the rest of us. I'm not against security. I'm not against advances in technology. I'm against giving a few people the power to control the rest of us.
So
rage against the machine. Okay. That's what I'm against. So don't formulate a criteria that puts me in a box that I'm not in. I'm not against technology. I'm not against having things secure. Okay. I'm not going to say more secure because I hate people who say more whatever. Okay. This is a power play where a few people control the rest of us. That's the part of it I'm against. I'm not against it being easier. I'm not against it. I'm not against companies having the right to do it. I'm not against it making things secure. I'm just against the fact, even though in this case it probably is more secure because it's 2 syllables and anyway, grammar lesson, to use the superlative, but it's the way my mind works. Sorry.
We're just sharing the stream of conscious.
Yes, this is my stream of consciousness. I'm contemplating more or most here because it's 2 syllables and not a 1 syllable word where you add ER or EST. But
I get it.
I'm against people trying to control this mind of mine because it's just so amazing, right? To everybody out there. Contact the ethics department if you don't like it. So there we go.
So I'll let everybody think about a question then, because this led perfectly into what I had written down as the next question. So Lance set it up. It's almost like we do a pre-show plan and talk about these things. Although in fairness, Lance didn't know any of these questions before we started.
We do, in all fairness, we do pre-planned stuff. Right. But with this one, I wasn't allowed to read the article. So I
thought you read it already.
I picked the article, handed it to my host here, and then all of a sudden I'm answering questions on it.
Here.
No, I like the way it's going so far. I'm handling myself extremely well.
Just so everybody knows, what just happened is I tried to give Lance the paper to look at while I share some information with you, but he said, nope, I don't want it.
I'm doing fine without it.
Okay.
I'm about to complete.
I don't want the man to control my thoughts.
I'm about to complete the word sleuth for the day.
Okay. Well, here's the question I want everybody to be thinking about for the next minute or two. How is this? And I mean, I'm talking about, let's all play fair here, because we can play parsing words and we can get real technical and you can say, well, yeah, it's different. But how is it actually any different than employers having your social security number, your home address, your bank account information, all things which employers have been taking for years, decades of that information? So Lance is excited to answer, but we're not going to let him quite yet. Lance, we're really trying here on TrueChat as a network, right? As a group of shows to pursue a common goal. What is that goal?
To give me a soapbox to keep my brain from exploding. Oh no, that's the submission statement.
Okay.
Yeah. TrueChat's mission statement is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. I'm always honest and open. I work at the respectful side. So please contact the ethics departments when you think I crossed the line of being respectful.
They'll get the ruler out.
Because I try to be respectful. I'm always honest and open.
We could give Caleb a ruler and you just come out and.
Oh, he would. He'd be smacking me on the hand like an old Catholic nun with his ruler.
Well, he is Catholic, so
I knew what I was saying.
I don't know if he wants to be a nun.
There was some punny stuff in there in that statement.
Yes, indeed. So, like Lance was saying, if you think we're not upholding that, brain's working today. Sorry, but I'm off on like 12 different tangents. All cylinders firing.
I walked into the studio, had a great morning, and my brain is just firing all over the place. So I apologize to our listeners and to my host and my producer for if I'm not staying on task, but I am just I am all over the place.
He's usually got about 4 cylinders firing, and today it's all 8. So he's really moving along. ethics@truechat.org. That's who you email. ethics@truechat.org. Send an email to them. Let them know if we're out of line. But if you just want to engage, you do so by heading over to social media at TrueChat.org, at TrueChat.org on social media. Let us know your thoughts. And the answer to the question, remember, that I mentioned here just a few moments ago, is how is it any different than employers keeping your social security number, your home address, your bank account information? How is this any different? Now, before we answer, one last thing, Lance. we've moved to a Tuesday and Thursday schedule, right? For the State of Us. That's when episodes are being released. And that's because Lance and I and our producer Caleb are working on some new programs, 2 of them, Saving Earth and Rethinking Education, 2 new TrueChat original serial podcasts. That's right. So they'll be released in seasons. And there's some information right now up about them on the website, truechat.org. So check them out. Stay tuned. Those are things we've been really talking about on the State of Us for years, but now they're both getting their own programs where we can really tackle those issues in depth, education and the planet. So we're looking forward to it. We're excited. And of course, we'll keep you updated on when you can get the first season of those programs. With that, Lance, how's it any different? You were excited before. You wanted to tell me, how is this biometrics, them keeping your fingerprint, them keeping your iris, how is that any different than social security number, bank account, et cetera?
Okay. The rest of the other examples you gave tend to run towards that's information about me. Okay. Okay. And I understand the other stuff is information, but that information can't be used to control me. You can steal my money. You can steal my identity, but you can't use it to control who I am and what I am as an individual. You start getting a hold of the slope to me is when you get a hold of my eyes and everything else, and you start getting that personal, then as technology improves, you now have the ability to start doing mind control. If you have my social security number, you can't control my mind. If you have my checking account number, you can't control my mind. You can drive me crazy because you take all my money, blah, blah, blah. But then that still allows me as an individual to process that information, start my life over, go back to work, whatever I need to do.
Help me understand how.
To me, that's the difference.
But okay, so somebody has your fingerprint on record, right? Which essentially on record, what does that mean? Because maybe this is part of what we have to clear up for people. What does it mean for them to have your irises on record, your fingerprint on record? It means that the computer has a set of data that it has taken from a scanner that is unique to your fingerprint. In the same respect, the random or orderly combination of letters, symbols, numbers that we use to create passwords is also a set of data that the computer stores, that the computer references when attempting to access something, particular thing. If the incorrect information is entered, then you can't enter. If the correct information is entered, then you can. I understand why it feels more personal, but I don't think that there, from again, just from a logic and computing standpoint, other than the complexity of the data, in other words, your fingerprint, part of why it's more secure, is typically more complex than most passwords, and thereby, right, more complicated for a computer to crack, which is what makes it more secure. So I don't think from a technical standpoint, it just because it's attached to you physically doesn't make the computer or the people who have access to the computer's data, doesn't give them any more access to your life than having your social security number does. In fact, I mean, I could contend, for example, having access to your bank account, right? They can see what you purchase, which gives them an insight into how you think, what matters to you, how you spend your time, what you spend your money on. They have your fingerprint. It doesn't tell them any of that. All it tells them is, you know, Lance's fingerprint's got this weird swirl here and that weird swirl there. And Lance, it probably knows more about your fingerprint than you know about your fingerprint. But, you know, looking at your bank account, man, that tells them a whole bunch about your life. You know, how much money you're making, and what portion of your income goes where, tells you about your priorities in life. I mean, to me, the bank account, for example, versus the fingerprint is a lot more personal because of the society we live in.
Okay, I didn't interrupt you. You done?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's where is the difference, and I'm going to use your own words against you from a previous show. You were telling me about AI, right?
Correct.
And so these computers that hold this information and hold my iris scan and my fingerprint and who knows what else they'll eventually say they need to do it because we need to make it more secure.
Your DNA.
We need to be, okay.
You know.
Then when these computers, this artificial intelligence becomes smarter than us, who's to say that it can't use all that information and figure out a way to control my brain? So it can ruin me financially. Okay. But it's not controlling my mind. That's where I am. I don't want it controlling my mind. I'm not trying to make it like keep beating a dead horse, but that's where I see where this is the problem. I understand all the other ways that it can harm me. Okay. With the other information, with the data about my financials, my address, my contact numbers, all of those things. I get that. But I still have my mind. My concern is when the machines start to have the ability to control our minds, which you have already shown me that in a sense they do, because the more people are connected to devices, the more the devices then show people the things that the people like, instead of giving me the option of flipping to CNN or Fox News or MSNBC because I want to see the other side. It just says, no, here's all the stuff that you like to see. So we're just going to show you this. With my mind, I have the ability to read and to watch differing viewpoints from my own so I can be educated and maybe have my mind changed or figure out my arguments to make the defense of what I believe in and the way I want to live my life even stronger because I read about things that are different from what my viewpoints are. And that makes me a stronger human being. And I don't want to give that up or possibly give that up to a machine. A machine wants to take my money. A machine wants to take my house. A machine wants to, ruin me financially. Okay, I still have my mind. I can still think for myself. I can still listen to opposing viewpoints and form educated opinions. That's what I want. And with what you've been telling me about AI and all the ways that they have control of things, and they're going to eventually become more intelligent than us, I don't want to give them anything from my physical being that could allow them to do that.
So I understand.
Whatever, dude.
I understand the fear, right? And I think the decent.
It's not a fear.
Well, I mean, sure. It's the fear of losing control of the one thing that we know makes us who we are, which is our own unique mind, our own consciousness.
All right. I'll agree with that.
I mean, that's my fear of the AI situation. It's not, I don't fear, for example, the good that AI will do. Some people are concerned about, well, if it cures disease, how will that affect humanity if we don't, if it cures old age or what, I mean, yeah, some of that stuff, I guess, worries me a little, but at the same time, it's like they're so overwhelmingly good that whatever challenges those pose, the solutions that AI brings, those I'm not afraid of because I think we'll be able to figure out how to continue to live and find value in our lives. I'm more concerned about as Lance put it, the side where they get into controlling our behavior. And to an extent, it's already happening. I guess what I want to put forward is just making sure that we're not giving biometrics the bad rap when they're not really the problem. The problem is a much larger conversation about how much tracking and behavioral study we allow machines to do. Passwords, social security numbers, bank accounts, your eyes, your fingerprints, all of those things by themselves don't pose any risk to you. None to your mind. What a machine or a person can do with those things is very different, but none of them are inherently bad things. A social security number is neither good nor bad. It just is. Just like your fingerprints are neither good nor bad. They just are. How we make use of them is very different. I think from a security standpoint, I understand the value of biometrics. I know, for example, that not only has it made it easier for me to log into my phone, but it has also made my phone safer. And with the type of personal information that most of us now have on our phone, that makes me feel better about the phone. I'm also one of those weird people, though, that takes time to at least skim some of the privacy information to understand, what it means for me to keep that fingerprint on file. At the same time, though, I think that we have to appreciate where we're already at. When AI has access, or when people have access to your bank account, or let's step away from the bank account, or just to your browsing history, Lance. Okay, when you're surfing around the internet, or when you're spending time on Facebook, which already exists, by the way.
I know.
And that's how Google right now, for example, tailors ads to what it thinks you might be interested in buying. Now, you tell me, Lance, but it observing you, then making decisions about what to show you in an attempt to get you to buy those things sounds an awful lot to me like the definition of mind control.
I agree.
So my point is, this is already here. It will only get more complicated as time goes on. I guess what I'm hoping to get our listeners and for Lance to consider is that biometrics, adding them as security features, does not increase the ability for these things to influence our behavior. Does it increase their ability to access our information? Possibly. But by itself, it does not give them more ability to control us. Now, if it gives them the ability to access more information about us, it can do that kind of in a third party kind of way. I just want to make sure that I understand why people fear it. Because a fingerprint, your eyes, those feel way more personal than a social security number, than a set of routing and account numbers, or than your bank statements. All of those things feel very impersonal, right? They don't feel like they're part of you. Your fingers, your eyes, those feel like they're yours. So I understand why it feels like it's more personal, and maybe it's more personal in that it's more intimate to who you are. But I don't think it gives them any more control than they already have over their ability to influence you. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree, but you make some fine points. But I just don't want to give them, I understand, I agree that they already have some of that power. I'm leery of giving them even more opportunities.
So...
But I understand. I get your point. I don't necessarily disagree with it.
That brings us to the last point before we end today's show is, and sometimes there's not. Sometimes Lance and I don't come up with an alternative or a solution, right? Because sometimes we just don't have the data or haven't spent the time, or we just can't think of a realistic alternative. Because see, to me, the alternative to passwords, the alternative to better privacy without rejecting technology, right? Because I mean, we act like that's not an option, but sure it is. I mean, we could go that way if that's what we want to do. It's not like we can't do that. It's not likely. But assuming that we're not going to entertain that route, that we're going to say technology is going to keep progressing and we're going to keep using it at least to the extent that we're using it today, then I see biometrics as a necessary security measure to keep my info safer from machines and other people, not put it in more risk. They're more secure than passwords. And this is the big key, if they're stored securely, the way that we currently try to take care of passwords, if they're stored in at least that secure of manner, then they improve our ability to avoid control, not hinder it. So the question, though, Lance, is there anything that's reasonable for us to do other than this if we don't want to just reject technology outright? Or are we okay accepting the risk and the flaws that user-created passwords
I guess provide? I just want to make sure, obviously rejecting it is the only thing I can think of. And you go back to paper, pencil, and I understand all of the risk and everything of doing all that kind of stuff. But we had more control. So I can't think of one. My point is people need to I'm just hoping that people start to understand what they're giving up, because all you're hearing from you and people who support things and they're decent arguments, yes, it is safer. Yes, it is more secure. Okay. But it does lead to possible things that could happen. And we need to go into it with our eyes wide open and not just believe that everything's going to be better because of this, because history shows that people that do that end up getting in situations that they didn't know how they got to. And as those of us who study history and we look back, we can say, oh, there's where they made a mistake. Oh, there's where they could have stopped it. Oh, that's what they could have done something here. Hindsight's 20/20. All I'm trying to do is to give people some thought to practice hindsight in the here and now, not after we've already destroyed society and then say, oh, gee, we could have done this or we could have stopped it here.
Not once it's too late.
And that's right. And that's all I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
As our producer put up, I need to be in a tin hat, which is an old, cultural reference to people that are afraid of the future. It's not so much that I'm afraid of the future. I've seen what things like this do when everybody just jumps on board and supports it because there are no naysayers. There's nobody saying, slow down. What could this do in a negative fashion in the future if we go down this line? I've seen what happens when cultures and people do that. And we're very quick in modern society to look back and say, oh, we would never be that stupid. We would never let that happen again.
Yeah.
And we do repeatedly. And that's my concern, is all I'm trying to get people to do is just slow down, check this out. And then if as a group we're okay with it, then okay, move on. But just don't accept things blindly when people say to you, this will make it safer. This is better for you. Okay, I'll go along with it. Don't be that kind of person. Be that person who stops and checks things out, makes informed decisions. And then if the good outweighs the bad and we all kind of agree on what the bad could be and we have our eyes wide open as we go into it, then I'm okay with it. It's the blindly following new things because somebody says it's better or it makes my life better that I'm concerned about. And my example is, oh, there'll never be another Holocaust. We'll never let that happen after World War II. And it happened in Rwanda. And you could argue that it's happened in Syria.
Yep.
And the world has stood by and, for the most part, watched it happen. And yet we claim, oh my gosh, when I taught school, we'll never let that happen again, Mr. Jackson. We know better. And then I point out, well, it's happened here. And they're going, oh, I didn't know.
And it happened before that.
Right.
In other words.
And supposedly information is more readily available now than ever before.
Yep.
And I can see the clock, but I just wanted to make sure everybody knows where I'm from, that I'm not scared of the future. I'm scared when people blindly accept things and don't stop to think about the ramifications.
Is it fair to sum it up then by saying that two things? One, if it happened once, it can, the key word being can, happen again. And it's foolish to assume otherwise, which is why, doesn't mean it will, but it can happen again. Certainly, right? If Lance sprouted wings once and flew, it's reasonable to say that it's certainly possible that could happen again because we saw it happen once. So, and then on the flip side though, it's, or I guess building off of that, that's why conversations like what Lance and I had today are important to have. It's not so, I'm not sure if it's so important to have, people shouting that it's good or shouting that it's bad as it just is to make sure that we have these types of discussions Lance and I had, because hopefully it gets you at home thinking about, maybe I haven't thought about this before. And maybe I spend 5 minutes today thinking about it. And when, 5 million people spend 5 minutes thinking about something, that translates to them talking to other people and so on and so forth. And that's how we hopefully avoid the big societal mistakes that you can run into if you don't give it at least some thought.
I like it.
Is that fair?
That is very fair.
Okay. In that case, a reminder again, we've moved to Tuesday and Thursday release schedule because we've got 2 new originals that Lance and I are working on. Saving Earth and Rethinking Education. Learn more about them. TrueChat.org, the website. And Caleb is producing. Special thanks, as always, to our producer, Mr. Caleb Spinner. And he's, yes, you can't see him, but he's, I think he's taking a bow. I'm not entirely sure what that was, but, Lance, we've challenged everybody to bring us at least one new listener this year, right? Mm-hmm. And with that, if they're telling other people how to listen, what are the ways that you can tune into TrueChat?
Well, you have, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, anywhere fine podcasts are found, and my favorite, Spotify.
You didn't lead with it today because I brought that up
yesterday
on our last recording. And so now that I said something, see, it changed. So
that's exactly right.
Let us know your thoughts at TrueChat.org, at TrueChat.org, Facebook, Twitter, and more. For the State of Us on TrueChat in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Weller.
And I'm Lance Jackson.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change.